All right, welcome everybody back once again to the PCS Spring Split 2022. We are 2 games down. We got 4 more to go. And for this one, PSG are retaking the stage as they fight off against the winless SEM9. Before we get into that pre-match, let's go ahead and thank our wonderful sponsors, Caliber and CTBC Bank. Thank you for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, PSG, they showed up big time earlier tonight with their victory over J-Team with a macro outclassing in what should have been quite the deficit for them. And now, Sem9 are going to be looking like the David to that Goliath as they are still looking to pick up their first win. Couldn't find it in the first round robin.
If I'm Sen9, I'm just thinking to myself, it's a new half, it's a new start, and I'm always looking for the bright side. For me, it was that they had a very close game against Frank Esports last week. They finished within only 2,000 gold of a deficit. Didn't have that bad of an early game, so I think for me, it's just trying to go back to some of those same strong champions that they have showcased. Even against Hanabi, we saw Shiro Mine go with a Tryndamere that got the 5 kills, was very impactful in those teamfight situations. So maybe he can try to go back to that one. And then, interestingly enough, the rest of the team, we did see Lazar kind of move away from all of those assassins. He is going back to the Orianna and try to play more of a teamfight style, which I think is a good track for them. You know, it's always a nice thing when you see a team that can play with those super aggro strategies, but still find success with a more standard suite.
I think going back to the basics is always important if you are not able to find success on what you're trying. Arashi, of course, back in the lineup today. This will be his 5th start with the team. Seems like he's splitting time so far with Caspiel, and I'm kind of hard-pressed to say which of the two of them has had a little bit more success, because obviously when you're winless, the numbers don't look good. I think Arashi, a little bit more recent experience coming to bear as he was part of the old Berjaya Dragon squad. Maybe he can help lead the team to victory today. That's going to be a tough ask, though.
Yeah, the thing about this team is that their 2 best players are probably both in their jungle position. I've actually been pretty impressed with Caspiel as well in terms of his engaging and his use of the Jarvan Cataclysm. Were quite nice in some of the team fights, but as you said, still didn't result in a win. Now it's PSG's turn. The last time they faced up, it was a bit of a stomp, to say the very least. I think it was a 21-minute game coming in from PSG. Juhan and Bei absolutely styling, and no real contest from the bot side as well. Now it's been a long half split. We'll see if PSG are still as dominant as before, or if they're going to try something. I think this is one of those games where if you're the coaching staff from PSG, and in this case, that will be Corgi, the world champion coach, then I think you give your players a bit of a leeway, let them play whatever they want to play, and try to go with some outlandish strategies.
Maybe it's maybe it's a little bit of experimentation. Let's dare to compare our mid laners here, because we did talk about Lazar going back to some of those more standard mages, and you do see as he's picked up, of course, the Cinder in addition to the Orianna. He has dealt a little bit more of the team's damage, but I think that speaks more about the team than it does about Lazar.
Yeah, I feel like for Lazar, he was really improved in terms of his gold differential. After the first week of playing, his stats were terrible, but honestly, in the second week, he's actually massively improved. I think Orianna has been a great pick for him overall, has stabilized himself the laning phase. You know, I think with the assassin picks, it is really hit or miss. You lose, you don't have wave control, and then things don't look so good for you. But Orianna is kind of a happy medium where they can still play a very aggressive style with that Jarvan combo, which is what they've been trying to do with Caspiel. And I think it really has been a godsend, at least in stabilizing the mid game for them. On the other hand, Bei, he is a very safe player. I think mechanically, we haven't seen exactly the highlights from him just yet, but in terms of a macro sense, he definitely has his own style where he doesn't leave the lane until it's pushed completely in. He's a very, I think LCK way of handling things. Where
It's very thorough.
He's very thorough, and I would say pretty risk averse at the same time as well.
And I think that might be, like, it feels so weird because we saw such an explosive, player in Maple, of course, very experienced assassin player last season with PSG. But at the same time, you have a lot of pop-up potential in the likes of like a Unified. I think Juhan has been showing he has some of that as well. And I think if your goal is to get to that stage of the game where your carries can pop off, you don't need one necessarily also in the mid lane. We'll see if he changes things up this time, though, in picks and bans. We do see the Zillion ban, of course, coming out in addition to the Zeri. And interestingly enough, as an Aphelios ban on the Sem9 side, I wonder if they want to try and force unified into something that's not one of the three he's gotten his hands on already if they first pick the Jinx for Klax.
Yeah, the picks from Sem9 are pretty interesting because sometimes they do actually favor the Jhin over your usual standard picks here. They do try to change it up and keep themselves alive.
Do it. Do we get our first Renata Glass with the PCS?
I don't
not at the expense of the Jinx, but maybe it's coming. I want to see it.
I would say Renata could make an appearance right here. PSG are going for, I would say, some sort of a triple dive all-in strategy here with the ban of the Zillion. Like, if you take out Zillion, that's a very clear signal that you're trying to play dive. So the Renata doesn't actually, I wouldn't be too surprised with the Renata in that situation. It's very easy to hit your ultimate when everyone is charging it.
Well, and look at this right now. You've got the Gwen and the Hecarim immediately locked in. Arashi will get to go ahead and take the Diana. So some power picks, at least for them, that they haven't been able to grab so far. I'm curious what Shiramine does to actually match this, though, because Renekton's a possibility in the early game. Hanabi, though, on Gwen is pretty terrifying.
It definitely is, and we have PSG with a incredible backline. The question is, how is Sem9 going to answer that? And it seems like they're trying to fight fire with fire. They have their own dive composition. So when you have these sort of two-team comps that are just running at each other most of the time, what usually happens is the one that gets the first strike in usually wins. They find the target, they absolutely obliterate one target, and they can move on to the rest. So I see this as being a very fast game. If one side gets a snowball, it will last until the end of the game.
Okay, so Bay's going to get some Ahri practice this time around. We saw him on it once already today. Let's see if it's going to step up a little bit more against Lazar into ban phase 2. Question is, do they try to focus and ban out more of these assassin champions, knowing that Lazar's gone for the more defensive plays, or maybe they ban the Orianna? Is it worth it? That's the question, right?
For sure. I think this Renekton has a high chance of actually going mid lane. This is typically what we have seen in the kind of Renekton and Diana duo. You want that sort of AP and AD mix, and there aren't really that many AD champions to go for in the mid lane. So high chance that Shiramine might still be getting one of those champions. We have seen his Tryndamere do very well into the Gwen matchup, so that's definitely a possibility, but PSG know about that as well as they ban it away.
Last ban for Sem9. They've already gotten rid of Zaya, so really trying to force Unified to dig deep into his champion pool. Definitely identifying a superior threat down there, as Unified is, I honestly still think, like, the best AD carry in the league, but they leave the Jhin up and available, and he's perfectly capable on that champion. So while they have a lot of deep dive, they're also going to have Unified on a champion that can open up a big curtain call. Gnar comes in, so we will get to see that Renekton in the mid. Shiramine going to try and go for that. And will we get Renata? This was hovered a little earlier on. Support pool's been hit. It seems like the time is right.
Please, I would love to talk about Renata. This is such an interesting champion.
No, you coward! You coward! How dare you?
You still get a chance from Kaiwi.
Kaiwi's having a giggle.
Yeah. Kaiwi wants to take up that challenge, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Renata Jhin lane would be, oh boy. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, I guess. Is he really?
Kaiwi
I know this feels troll, but it could happen. Like, that could set up a nice pick. And
Morel isn't a real champion. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no. I mean, Leona's up. All right. Safe and standard. Okay, well, one day. One day, Glass Industries will be open for business.
It doesn't look like today, though, as we are going to settle in. I feel like PSG has a very clear identity on what they're trying to do. They're going to keep the backline as far away as possible. If you're talking about wombo combos, PSG's combo has a lot higher chance of success right here. Gwen and Hecarim, they just run at you. In the meantime, it's harder for Diana and this Renekton to actually find the backline targets in Jhin. So just in the composition and the combos, I feel like PSG do have the upper hand here. If you think about the interaction, it's much easier for PSG to just catch. And as we've said, if you're playing wombo combo, it's about the first strike that really matters.
Absolutely. And I think PSG are a team that have shown they have just such an incredible sense about when they need to make a play and where on the map. And it's netted them wins against, at least so far, some stronger opponents. And early on in the split, we saw the Beyond Gaming match. We were wondering, okay, is this PSG going to start falling a little bit further down and not be at that typical dominant form. Well, they are a different sort of team these days than they were last year, but so far they have shown up, and coming off a win against J-Team, a very, very strong performance from them. They should be feeling very confident against Sem9. And for the Malaysian representatives, this is going to be yet another tough ask to try and deliver a victory. But if they get it, oh boy, that would be the upset of the week.
The question is, where were you when Sem9 took down PSG and later went to Worlds? It could all start today. You never know.
It could.
Some hope.
But it does feel like that might be in another timeline. We'll have to find out. It's always a possibility. We got to get onto the Rift and see it. There are tools in the kit. Perhaps the trust in Clayx or Lazar to get the job done on some damage dealers. Perhaps Shiramine can outplay Hanabi. If they can find an edge and find their first victory, that would send a message to the rest of the league that Sem9 are a lot stronger than they may have appeared on paper. We'll find out as we get onto Summoner's Rift here.
So
no shenanigans as a fan out.
Yeah, they're just pretty standard. I do expect PSG to have the advantage in their mid and top lane earlier on. Renekton doesn't actually have kill threat on the Ahri. You have to pretty much flash onto her in order to get the kill down, and I don't see that as being a high possibility with Hecarim around. So Sem9 are going to get pressured a bit earlier on, and I do want to point out the masteries that we have from Shiramine here. We have seen Rest actually go for Hail of Blades in the past to kind of win out this trade. But he's going for a much more standard option here in the Fleet Footwork. It's possible for this Gnar to bully out the Gwen, but overall it has been very difficult for Gnar to work out in team fights, especially against teams that sort of open the team fight so quickly with the Ahri Charm and the Onslaught of Shadow. So we'll see how that goes. The best situation for Sem9 is definitely for Shiramine to actually just completely win over the lane. That would be the best opportunity, but I'm a little bit doubtful that they can make it happen given the fact that they are running a Diana and she's starting in the top side.
Oh, look at Hanabi. Level 1 shenanigans coming in, no fear, with a little bit of snipping onto Shiramine. It's not going to dissuade the push here as they tried to interrupt and force the smite out, but Marashi not going to be slowed down too far off as he gets the smite off on the health. Nice attempt, though. It certainly didn't hurt, as he can get right to lane and match the pressure that the Gnar is dishing, and already off to a good start. Hanabi on this Gwen. We always think of him as a weak side laner, just because that typically was how PSG played him for so long in the past, but give the man a carry and he can work wonders.
Especially a Gwen carry. That has been the standout pick for him, and Hanabi has been playing this absolutely beautifully. That's one of the reasons you see a lot of these melee champions actually leaving lane early to harass, because if you force the enemy back into lane in an awkward position, you just get easy melee trades onto them early levels. You can force the HP downs super low, and that really opens up some ganking or kill potential for them. It makes the lane a lot more difficult to play. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, we do have a bit of a push in from the Jinx. We've seen this multiple times from this lane, but it really is about the ganks, I would say, about this lane. If you look at the level 6, it is so dangerous from Sem9 and actually very safe from PSG. That's the thing about Jhin, is that it's so easy to snowball without putting yourself in a lot of danger.
A very long range. Ooh, they're going to get the ward down, spying Juhan on the blue, so they know that's happening. Yeah, talk about defensive summoners, man. Unified, of course, on that exhaust to try and prevent the dive-in from the likes of Arashi. I mean, he's a confident man, and he can certainly afford to make this play. Obviously, that could be a little trouble for him if it turns into more of a 2v2 situation here. But Clayx and Philia, I think they might have a little bit of a challenge trying to close that gap, because that's just something Unified's so good at, is positioning himself.
Yeah, I don't think PSG are going to get caught out onto this bot side, but so far so good for Sem9. Getting the early scuttle there, and also just dipping into the jungle to make sure this Hecarim isn't going to get much done early. So I think they're holding their own. The only kind of blemish there is onto the top side. A little bit of light trading going on across the lanes. Nothing too significant. I do want to mention this mid lane trade, and this is the reason why it's actually Ahri is one of the few mages that has a good time against a lot of these bruisers, is she has an instant hard stun crowd control that is very difficult to avoid if you're someone like a Renekton. That's not really true for, Victors or Orianas, but it definitely is the case for Ahri, and that makes her actually quite formidable I love playing Renekton myself in the mid lane, but the Yara matchup can be kind of tough. You know, the only thing you can really do is just try to push in, and PSG are going to use that to full advantage.
Arashi waves the white flag as the Gromps contested. Lazar and Shiramine looking to actually close this, but the game senses are tingling, and Juhan and Bei are going to move their way to safety. You talked about how Bei, as a player, definitely a little bit more risk-averse. I do think he is more likely to back out, give himself the escape hatch, and Juhan as well if he can manage it. And as a result, that's one of the reasons I think his scoreline, his KDA, has actually looked pretty darn good over the course of the last couple of weeks. Admittedly, he has been playing against some of the weaker teams in the league, but he's been able to stay alive a lot more often than your average mid laner, and that certainly counts for something.
For sure. If you have a 21 KDA, you're definitely doing something right. Let's just say that for get the obvious out of the way. But I really want to see, especially against a team like 7-9, him try to push his mechanics. Like, not go into a situation where he has a macro lead and just try to like outplay. That's when you really start to see like the players start to shine out. And this is what I miss about kind of watching games in the LPL is like everyone is willing to throw down. Like, if you give it just an inch, they're like, okay, I'm blowing my flash, I'm going in for the kill, let's rumble.
It's a fun league to watch, and the best part is it's always been that way, right? Like, it doesn't matter what season, what meta, what year, like, teams will always take the coin flip, or at least enough of them will.
Yeah, that's what you need to have for, I think even just for a good talent pool, to be honest. You need to have, like, young players able to showcase themselves. Don't think Shiramine really wants to take this one, actually.
No, he doesn't.
Up, huh?
When Meganar's going the other direction, that's a feels bad, man. Hanabi does take a little bit of punishment off the back, but that needlework is going to force Shiro out of lane, and, well, this is Hanabi's lane. Shiro's just living in it.
Yeah, I was very surprised that the Gnar actually walked up into a level 6 Gwen like that. He does get the summoner, but this laning situation is very awkward, as he does have the wave shoving out there,
and
is at a large CS deficit.
Yeah, it feels a little bad. So far, CS leads do continue across the map, with the exception of down bottom, where Clayx is keeping even with Unified. And board coverage, definitely want to keep an eye on how that's all going, as Sem9 trying to keep it clear. This does open up an opportunity for the Mountain Dragon to be started by Juhan. And it does feel like, for PSG, they are taking, once again, the slow and steady approach. No need to try and open up, make the big plays. I would like to see a little bit more styling plays, but, you know, outside of top lane and not be having a little bit of fun, I don't know if we're going to get it early on in this game.
You and me think so. Like, I think it's just the fact that we've casted LPL in the past, and that has stained our thinking forever in terms of League of Legends. If there's no blood happening at 7 minutes, like, what are you guys
That's my first pro
doing?
league, man. Yeah, it never goes away. That was back in 2014 when I was doing the LPL, Clement. So it definitely never fades.
I started 4 years after you, followed your footsteps in 2018, so
there we go.
I definitely know where you're coming from in this one. It seems that the game is getting to the point where I feel like PSG should be fairly comfortable in trying to go for a Herald play. Their top lane is relatively far ahead, and they do have the double boots there as well, which does signal a chance for sort of just out-roaming, getting into positioning first, and try to find a snipe with that charm. And that's kind of the big question. Can Bei actually find those charms? I don't think we really saw a charm until much later into the game, earlier today. So this is Bei's chance to kind of redeem himself.
Yeah, on that side, I think seeing the step up with some of those mechanical hits is really going to be really useful. Kaiming sniffs around with the Zenith Blade. On the opposite side, you know, for Sem9, I mean, it does feel like the impetus is on them to try and open up, to try and act. Because what have we really seen from this team in 9 games? I mean, admittedly, they got off to a rough start, having to play a lot of games due to the COVID situation in week number 1, but like, what is this team's identity? What are they trying to do? I feel like I haven't been able to find an answer to that, and I want more. I want more from this squad.
We all definitely do want more. And you know, to be perfectly honest, I think Sem9's issues is just like laning strength overall hasn't been up to par with their opponents. However, we do have an opportunity for Sem9 to find something on the map. I wouldn't say this is a bad trade at all. They are up about 320 gold just because of those plates against the Herald. And they have denied quite a bit from Unify. Look at this. Clayx is 2 levels up on the Jhin.
Yeah, that's actually pretty nice to start on the trade. The question is, can they make that worth it when the Herald does get dropped? If they can actually sniff that out and stop it, that definitely cuts the bleeding. And obviously there isn't a massive gold swing right now because they have been able to cut it out here. Still no first blood at 9 minutes, and credit to Shiro Mine. He has been able to at least stay alive through some of these attempts on his life by Hanabi, even being a level down, still hanging in. But you're right, that does seem to be one of the core issues with the Sem9 squad, is just compared to the rest of the PCS, their laning strengths just haven't really been there, and they need to find an edge. Lazar does go in, dodges a charm. Bay is having a hard time hitting those through the slices and dices. Here's Juhan, though, waiting in the wings.
No, really nicely played from Lazar. You do see the early Merc treads, as you do in this sort of a matchup. And here comes the sort of big question here, as we do have a bit of a lead on KlayX's part in this bottom side. Are they going to try and contest this? PSG, I think, with a very smart move these days, is just playing towards the mid lane when you have the Herald. There's no TP that's going to be coming from the top side, no flank potential, and that just means it's going to be very difficult for Lazar as a melee champion to wave clear this.
Very difficult when there's 4 people on the lane. Juhan comes and cuts him off in traffic. Going to open up for at least 1, potentially 2 plates. Oh, even more with Shelly coming in. The rocket whiffs wide. And that's going to be just enough for a charge. Oh, it was a second away from clearing it as Arashi gets the smite down. But they will answer with the final plate in the bottom lane. KlayX might even be able to finish this tower. If he holds his nerve, he sees Unified coming and backs off. That is not actually a terrible trade for Sem9.
Yeah, this is very interesting from PSG. I in my opinion, they're actually overcommitting to a lot of these mid lane trades. Because if you think about the map, they don't get another chance to get the mid lane tower unless they find a kill somewhere. So in terms of that trade, they essentially what they did was they traded 4 plates for the Herald charge. So in terms of like the overall Herald play, Sem9 actually got the better end of it. The extra gold that you see on PSG isn't coming from the Herald, it's actually coming from the CS. So yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, if they find a kill and they're able to get the first brick gold, then it wipes away that opportunity. But I do think they have to be careful about force-feeding KlayX way too much and giving him a good setup into the Drake fight.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a wild card, X Factor, to give a Jinx that much of a edge early on. Lazar coming in to clear out the wave here does give Bay the opportunity to clear vision out behind the pit. This does give PSG the chance to open up on this dragon. This is going to be the Cloud number 2. We've seen PSG definitely prioritizing these fast Drake stacks. Definitely one of the teams that is pretty solid at it overall, but Sem9 have to know this is the case. They're going to try and clear vision out for themselves. Teleports aplenty, unless your name is Bay, but he's already here.
Yeah, and we do have to pay attention to Shiromine. This is the most difficult part about playing Gnar, getting into the team fights with your Mega ready. On the flip side, they do have a sizable advantage coming in from the Jinx. As we said, a lot of tower plates going her way, so she will have that Gale Force. Ooh, Juhan nearly going down.
Yeah, they're actually going to go for it onto the Hecarim, and he ults away. But the fight is still going as Arashi targets onto Unified. When the pony ran, there was nobody covering for the AD carry, and now they can maybe try to turn the fight, but now it's going to be Bay coming in for round 2 along with Hanabi. Lazar goes down as Bay picks up 2 in the extended trade. So a bit of a messy aftermath to that dragon, but PSG come out ahead.
Yeah, we didn't see Shiromine join that at all, so unfortunately for Sem9, they overplayed their hand on the chase down. They got Unified, that was good, but they should have backed out after that one play. And it does look like PSG are still going to walk away with the objective and a lot of damage on this mid. So overall, I would say PSG still come out ahead in that trade, especially factoring the fact that Gnar only took 1 turret play top. So I think this is definitely still acceptable. It was a lot more risky than I think they might have wanted it to be. Filia definitely getting a good lockdown here, and also tagging Bay along the way in that fight. Arashi burning exhaust, but still getting into the backline right off the bat. It was pretty good, but they really should have backed off after that play. Gnar was just not going to join this one, and I think Lazar got a little bit baited by his team going into that. If they just backed out and kept Lazar alive, I think that would have been a winning trade for them.
Yeah, as it was, they still managed to get something back for it, clearly not even looking for the dragon. But speaking of dragons, we are going to have an Infernal Rift this time around, which PSG and some of their damage dealing going to be pretty happy about that one. Man, towers have managed to stay alive up until the plates have been fallen, but a stiff breeze is all it takes for Bay to pick off first frickin' mid. And that is going to open up a little bit more of the map here for PSG Talon. Another Herald in 20 seconds as well. So it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat, and try to extend that lead. Only about 1,000 and some change right now for the side of PSG Talent.
For Sem9, they still want to drag this out just a little bit while longer. They want to wait until Nautilus comes up. The fight starts.
Oh, but they open up the curtain call. They've already taken down Philia. And oh my goodness, even though Arashi is able to pull a couple more in here, Juhan turns it around, and Sem9 are just running out of members. Shiramine looking around and wondering where the heck his team went.
Absolutely beautiful stuff from PSG. They know they have the double stasis. They go right in. And unfortunately, Fila doesn't even get his ultimate to go off. I was talking about Sem9, you know, they want to hold off for a couple more seconds. So maybe PSG were somehow aware of that timing. I doubt it personally, but you know, you never know. These pro players, they can't surprise you with a lot of these timers, and they find a perfect engage. They soak up all of the skill damage coming in, just dodge it out completely with the stasis going back and forward, and unfortunately there just wasn't enough damage here for the side of Sem9. And this is something that we have seen again and again from PSG. Sure, they might lose a lot of these early skirmishes, but when it comes to major objectives, they are always in position first, and they always know the benefit of just, you know, chunking out an enemy member to allow them an uncontested fight.
Yeah, I think target selection, in addition to just like knowing when and where to choose those fights, is a massive strength of PSG. They just always seem to make the correct play on the map against their competition, and well, see if they can do it again. As the fight in the top lane shifted down to the bottom, Shiramine realizes it might be a little troubling to try and go 1v3. Has to flash away from the solar flare. He does, but it costs him quite a decent bit. Let's see if the turn goes through here as Arashi looks for Kaiwing and Unified. Unified's already back out to safety, but Kaiwing may not be so lucky. Philia does get the dredge line on, but it's going to be dodged away. Meanwhile, Playax holding firm against Juhan, who is going to be able to gallop away. And man, there's no dragon, but you'd not know that looking at this fight here. Philia caught Playax in the back. Bay goes for it deep on the Spirit Rush, and the rest of Sem9 are going to collapse in the Harrowed Mist. And Shiramine now no Narbar to speak of. Double kill coming through as Juhan helps secure it, and PSG 10 kills on the board this game to the 1 that Sem9 have clawed back.
Oh, that was such a shame because Sem9 definitely had a chance to win that. I think Shiramine did a great job. He dodged out on the needlework, dodged out on Leona skills, dodged out on the captivating audience as well. So it was a great start. They really saw the surround coming. They knew where the members were. But unfortunately, I think they over-chased onto Kaiwing. He's the tankiest member on the team. He procs his Aftershock and then just stands on the ramp. And that just puts Sem9 in such an awkward positioning. As you see Clayax and his pathing, he had a close encounter with a very angry pony, and that did not go well for his HP bar. So unfortunately for Sem9, they outplay the first part, but the second part, they just fell into such a massive deficit. Bay sees blood in the water, flashes in to make sure that he can get that before himself is stunned up. Really smart play. I love that flash to start things off. And after that, frankly, PSG are just in cleanup mode.
Yeah, not a lot you can do when your primary damage dealer has gone down. The rest of your team scattered to the winds. This does mean that PSG still on track. Whoa! Oh, just a smidge too early on the Dragon. Man, Clayax has been really trying to go for the highlight montage with steals, but unfortunately it's a little bit harder to AoE snipe out objectives with Jinx these days. Meanwhile, fight up top, Nabi trying to hold on. Oh, he's going to take out Lazar. Wait a minute, that needlework forcing the flash away, and here comes Juhan to clean things up. Meanwhile, Arashi stunned and charmed for days as Bay goes into stasis. The rest of PSG come for the cleanup, and oh boy.
That Dark Seal start is really working out for Bay. I want to see
he's got stacks.
Yeah, full stacks already, 5-0 and 5. I wonder what his KDA is going to be like after this game, because it's already sitting at 21. They could get a sizable boost after that one. Unfortunately, looking at the game there, I think that was a bit of desperation from Sem9. You know, dodging, trying to dive a Gwen has not yielded some great results. It's one of the reasons why Gwen is such a high priority, because she's just so safe in the top lane all by herself, and she scales well as well. So not a lot of risk just running her there. The rest of PSG were able to funnel in, and Sem9, if they want to use this sort of wombo combo, they really need all of their pieces at the same time. They need the Mega Gnar, they need the Moonfall, it needs to be instantaneous, and it needs to be focused on the same target. If those stars don't align from them, I just don't see them winning in these sort of scattered out team fights.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is just so hard to execute. You talked about it in the draft phase, how, this was going to be a little bit more difficult for Sem9 from the get-go. PSG definitely more in their element overall, and they have definitely looked a lot better in terms of, in some of the individual accomplishments. I think Bay has been looking better on the Sari because he has had a little bit of an easier time, admittedly, but his team's setting him up for it. Unified, despite, the one death he's suffered, still really looking great in the team fights as expected. Shiramine has not been able to get a whole lot. Doesn't matter what he's laning against. And they might not be able to stop this tower going down, but at the same time, they've kind of neutralized some of the powerful picks that Sem9 have been able to grab for themselves in this one, and well on track to securing that Infernal Soul pretty early. Juhan goes a-running, looks for Arashi, turns over to Shiramine. No Narbar as he gets the blue smite down, and I do believe there's not much he can do but sit and spam, as he was charmed for days.
Yeah, beautiful combo coming in right there. Juhan kicking the target back, and we saw Bay going for the Everfrost first into the charm combo. Pretty much guarantees everything to land down, so really nicely executed. Kaiwing even popping over the wall with an ultimate to make sure that CC chain goes all the way through. Not even an auto attack coming in from Shiramine in that one. And I think that really showcases the difficulty of playing a Gnar. You do not have crowd control on command. So even just dodging these just situations where there is a pincer becomes very difficult. You don't have that Neganar to push people away. And I think that's the reason why we just haven't seen the Gnar overall, even though Hullbreaker has been such a strong build. I know LCK likes it, but in the LPL, in the other regions, Gnar has really been put back on the back burner.
Yeah, I think it's just, it is so situational and it is so risky, and you put yourself at a bit of a disadvantage. Sure, you can do something in the lane, but even that's, highly dependent on the matchup, and then you have to just play it so perfectly as Arashi goes in onto Bay, immediately prompting the Zhonya's Hourglass has to turn back around. 2-level deficit, Arashi still going in. That definitely takes some cojones, as we might say.
When you're behind, you have to learn to front a little bit. You have to make the enemy scared of you and make less efficient play. So that was a good move by Arashi. Trades cooldowns very successfully. I think for me, the big issue is still, when is that Wombo combo going to come through? We want to see that Moonfall on top of a Dominus. Well, it's going to go the other way.
Yeah, Lazar really had no chance there from the get-go. Opens up, Rocket comes out. Unified, though, is caught, and Arashi exhausted, but the cavalry has arrived as Juhan charges forward. Flashing Bay is actually going to be able to secure that charm at point-blank range. And in goes the onslaught of Shadows, and Shiramine is forced into the pit. The rest of the team scattered to the four winds. And oh, would you believe it, that is the ace for nothing. Sem9 out of this one as PSG will be able to secure a Baron.
I will say at least Sem9 did make it to the 22-minute mark this game. Even though it's one-sided, has been a slight improvement for Sem9. Even though that might not seem like much consolation, they are at least outlasting their previous record.
You have to take the silver linings where they exist, but oh, it is a very thin silver lining here, Clement. 18 kills to 1. PSG. Oh, let's take a look at that again. Unified definitely, by all rights, gets caught here. Still,
yeah, I feel like he was baiting a little bit in this one. Really nice use of the... He did bait towards the top side there, and just look at all the research that would suck in on the minimap. You can also see just when having a terrific angle of attack here, gets right onto Clayx, forces everything away from him, cleanse, Gale Force, and still chases down for the kill. So, to me, that was... I don't even think Unified... wasn't calculating that. I felt like that was kind of part of his calculation, especially when you're running Exhaust and Flash and Gale Force. You definitely expect to kind of run into those situations. And credit where it's due, I feel like Unified has always been great at just walking around with Jhin, using that movement speed to his advantage.
You're not wrong, and he also is, in fairness, a hard man to read, right? Unified is, he's got the best poker face in League of Legends, I'm convinced.
Oh, he doesn't talk at all.
Yeah, even better than Ryu.
Yeah, that's the thing about Unified. I think it is a detriment in big games, but Kaiwing is kind of his translator.
Whatever works, right? Oh, now we play protect the cannon creep. My favorite part of the Baron push.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Hanabi on the top lane. Hanabi's getting to have a fun game of League of Legends. I think he had to play tank duty last time around. He had to play weak side. I feel like there's a deal here. Curtain call opened up. Oh, Lazar taken out of this one before it even begins, and through the backline. Where the heck did Juhan even come from? As the rest of Sem9 are going collapsed. That is going to be the ace, and that is going to be the game. Just under 25 minutes. PSG flexing their muscles as they will go 2-0 on the day. It's going to be a super week for them, making up for lost time, but they are off to a flying start here in week 4.
As is tradition, I fully expect Unified to buy everyone dinner. He is the only one that died on the team, and therefore it is his fault for the team not achieving a perfect game.
That's how that works.
I'm not sure what to say about this game. I felt like there was some glimmers of hope earlier on when we saw the trade coming in for the Herald. We saw the 4 plates being secured by Sem9. They were actually winning out on the bot side, but it was just over-forcing those chases again and again, and it really brings us back to what we were talking about in the draft phase. They do have a wombo combo. Renekton and the Diana is a classic of the LPL, but unfortunately it was way too hard to execute on these targets like the Jhin, like the Ahri, that frankly were never in view. You only had the front line that you could attack, and we saw that just happening again and again, where they would overchase and they realized, wait a minute, there's only Kaiwing we can hit, and Bay gets free access into the backline after the first salvo.
Yeah, and I think credit to Bay as well, because he did look better in this game on this Ahri. He was able to, not necessarily in the lane, like really dominate super hard, but he was able to get in and dive the backline after the fact, dodging out. I mean, obviously you can't dodge the Nautilus ultimate, but you can certainly delay it if you can cover enough ground, and he was able to do that when he took out the Jinx. I think credit to Unified, of course, too. You know, he went for the more defensive summoner choice of the Exhaust, made it count. Arashi played his heart out trying to find those plays, trying to find those kills, but unfortunately by the time he did, it just felt like there wasn't enough extra damage. They were too far behind. Sem9 did try for a couple of desperation plays, but you're right, it comes down to execution. You've got to give yourself the tools to succeed, and I don't think Sem9 did here. I do want to see them maybe go back to the drawing board a little bit with some of their drafts. It's looked a little bit better of late, but, you know, I mean, what can you do, right?
Yeah, I feel like Sem9's games are definitely getting closer and closer. If you look at their first week, the stats were pretty terrible. This week and the past week, at least the laning phase has been going sort of equal. And we have to mention that Sem9, they do have a lot of players that are just kind of stepping into competitive. Lazar, for example, is kind of in that situation. So it's definitely going to be a slow process, but we are seeing progress. And for Sem9 fans, I think that's at most of what you can hope for, honestly.
Right. It can be a building split for sure. Maybe we see this team in the summer look a little bit better. Obviously, there's still plenty of time to play in this split as we have the second round robin really just unfolding at the start of today. But I think if this team wants a chance to try and secure that top 8, try to get into playoffs, I feel like they need to improve at a faster rate than they currently are, because everybody else is starting to catch up. You know, every other team in the league has at least one win now. Hurricane have managed to get one. Obviously, Impunity have been making improvements steadily. Meta Falcon team have kept it close against a number of the stronger teams in the league. So if you don't want to fall into that last place, you need to be able to make some more plays, find more of a team identity, find a big carry. And maybe it can be Arashi. I mean, no shade at Caspiel. I think this is one of the better Arashi performances we've seen. We've seen what he can do on Berjaya Dragons last season. There's always a possibility for some pop-up potential. I do like that they can center around him with a Diana composition and go for that dive. It's just maybe give yourself a little bit of an easier time with the champions you choose.
Yeah, the problem for Sem9 right now is they're really overloading on what the jungler needs to accomplish in the games. What we've seen is Arashi and Caspiel as well. I think they are the 2 best players on this team. They do have to engage for the team as well, and they likely have to shot call. I just think that's too much of a bear to load. So I would say the easy fix for me, in my opinion, is you can try to move those engage opportunities onto Shiromine, or try to get them onto Philia. Maybe get those 2 to kind of step up and call the shots on where to attack. And that will allow, I think, Arashi to find better opportunities into the enemy backline. Maybe he can start to play something like a Viego that is much more carry-oriented, like these Dianas or these Jarvans. You know, I think they're just asking too much from their junglers, and it really means that it lowers their damage potential overall. And even look at this game, even though Arashi was always the first one in, he's still doing the most damage. So he's doing a good job on that front, but he could do so much more if he could just focus on maybe being a carry.
Certainly the case. But speaking of damage, hey, look at Bay. Almost cracking the 2,000 mark there, just about doubling everybody else in the game at the very least, including Hanabi's Gwen, who was just having a ball solo in that top side. And Juhan will be the one earning our MVP today. Certainly on the Hecarim, he was there, he was here, he was everywhere. We've seen some bad Hecarims in this league, but Juhan certainly wasn't one of them.
Yeah, he's just running down targets over and over again, and I think this is a good change of pace for him, because we have seen Juhan trend towards the Xin Zhaos and the Lee Sins, but I honestly feel like with Bay's play style, it's probably better if the whole team is on the same page and trending more towards teamfight. I think the PSG of the old, where they're a tempo team, is definitely not the case in 2022, and just getting those picks, I would say Volibear is another big one for them to likely hone down on. If they can get these champions with very easy crowd control and high team fight impact, that probably goes along better with the style that Bay has presented us.
Yeah, and it's pretty terrifying to think that PSG are rocking as hard as they are without really going for an optimized strategy as of yet. As they look to fine-tune, tweak, and everything, I think PSG Talon fans are going to have a lot to be excited for. But we are halfway through the day. I cannot wait to see the rest of these squads. And we're going to go on break. When we come back, Beyond Gaming will be taking on Hurricane. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the PCS.